welcoming her today. We're going to get to know her, look through all the different times and experiences that she's had over her fight career, all the way until now. And I wanted to start way, way back because we have something very similar. Right after 9/11, I moved to the States from Europe. I immigrated to the States myself. I was around 8, 9 years old, so similar to your age. And I was wondering what life was like when you first came to the States as an immigrant from Vietnam.
Um, I don't know. I was just like pretty oblivious. My parents kept me pretty out of the loop. I thought we were just going on a trip until I realized we were like gonna be here for a while. But for me, it was everything was just bigger because where I come from, it's like really condensed and so that was different. The schooling was different, obviously, seeing a lot more Caucasian people than I'm used to, and I like there were a lot of privileges that I didn't know that were available or
Mm.
like that existed. So that was different. But I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the space. I enjoyed the diversity, the different changes. But my dad kept it really, really Vietnamese at home. It was like living in two worlds. So like when I came home, it was total Vietnam, working super hard from the moment you wake up to the moment you go to sleep. So like school was like a vacation for me. But yeah.
How was learning the language? Because I remember when I transferred schools, one of the differences was the schooling itself. I felt like in Europe we were almost 2 years ahead of the system here. Like you said, a little bit of privileges. I almost had the same parents as what the stereotypical Asian parent is. Like if I brought back an A minus, I would kind of get whipped into
Yeah.
why I
I think
didn't get
that's
an A plus.
important.
So
What?
during a lot of the classes, I was playing with Legos, especially like mathematics. So I was playing with Legos in class until almost like third grade by the time I got there. So I was learning the language.
It was easy for me. It was really quick. I don't know why I've always been I don't really like this term because it sounds a little bad, but my mom used to say I got a loose tongue. I can learn I can learn languages really really quickly. So English was really easy for me. Plus, you couldn't stop me from talking if you wanted to. I was just on and on when I was little, so it was really easy to learn. It's funny because when I moved to America, so we rented this little house, right? Well, to us, it was like holy shit, it's a mansion in America, you know. But like, so there was one album and one movie that taught me English. So the album was Tony Braxton, Heartbreak Hotel, and fucking movie was Curly Sue. And so like when I learned English, I was so dramatic, because like I learned it from like Tony Braxton. Everything was like, "Oh my god, mom and dad, like my heart is broken." So I was probably annoying at the age, to be honest.
Well, that's how I'm trying to learn Thai is I'm watching like the same movies and TV shows again, and it's definitely helpful, but I figure that I'm learning these phrases and stuff that probably are like super dramatic because a lot of it comes from like soap operas and everything, so I can totally relate to that. And I
Mm-hmm.
wanted to hear more about your story because I knew a little bit about you before you were on one, but once you went on one and I started following you on Instagram, I dove a little bit deeper to figure out just like who you are and what your career's been like. So you've obviously fought on Lion Fight, you fought on Invicta or Legacy, and now you fight on one. Can you talk a little bit about just like the progression of your martial arts career? Like, where did you start? How did it get to where it is today? And just like fill us in with a little bit about your journey.
I started, you know, during the times. I mean, Misha Tate and Ronda Rousey had just broken like the ceiling with Strikeforce when I started, but it was still like um, fallouts after fallouts, looking for opponents. So I'm actually really grateful to grow up in the time where it was really like some real fighter shit, you know? Like you just fought whoever anytime. I fought at 125, I fought at 130, I fought at 105. I fought anybody in the Muay Thai world. And then also you do the tournament type where you fight like 3 days, I mean 3 times in like a day or two, even as an amateur. So I'm glad I grew up in that because it really toughened me up. But it was rough. But for my personal struggle was men in the fight world at that time. So I got my very first fight, and even my own coach at the time was like, "You know, you got that fight because you're pretty." And I was a co-main for my debut MMA for Legacy, and he was like, "You know, you got that fight because you're pretty." I'm like, "Yeah, but I'm gonna beat her up because I'm good. Like, calm down." You know, I was so mad, but I kind of just sucked it up and then just kept fighting. But I dealt with that a lot, like so many barriers I had to break in my fight years. But fighting at Lion Fight was dope. That was like later on in my career. That was my last Muay Thai amateur fight. Um, because MMA was making more money in the States then. And then no people don't really know I wrestled in high school. I wrestled for 3 years in high school. So it kind of just made sense, you know? And also, I'm tiny. If like fans out there know me, I'm teeny, and I think that's why a lot of people follow me because I'm small and I fight bigger people. But anywho, so I like MMA gloves better. That's why I love one, the Super Series where I get to hit people. Cause in line fight it was dope. I got like so many sweeps. I knocked her down and whatever. But it was like pillow fighting. I would hit her as hard as I could, and her face was like, and that pissed me off, you know. So when I put on 4 ounces and when I hit people with 4 ounces, I'm like, okay, this is where I can showcase my power, my precision, because gloves are smaller. So that's why I transitioned to MMA, and now I'm like super happy that One Championship has Super Series because that is my favorite thing. Like stand up with MMA gloves, pure violence, pure precision, pure speed is like my favorite thing. Um, but oh, this is a story people don't know. I was cutting so much weight to 105 in America. So much weight. And people look at me and they're like, no, you don't, because I'm short. But I'm thicker than people think. My thighs are really heavy. I carry a lot of weight in my legs. So my last fight before one, I was going to retire because fight week, I was like dizzy, shaky. I got on the scale. I could barely like, I faked it well, but I could barely like see straight. And then when I fought, her first punch, I fell. Second punch, fell. Third punch, fell. Got choked out. I got murdered in that fight because, and I didn't say anything after. Nobody knows because, of course, you say something after as an excuse, you know.
Mhm.
But the weight cut almost made me quit the sport until One Championship called me, and it was great from there.
What is the weight cutting process like in One Championship? Sometimes it feels like they really got it covered, that they're doing it the exact way everyone should do it, where neither fighter is cutting weight, because we have this weird contract where I'm fighting another guy that's 200 pounds and we're both cutting down to 185 or 170, and then we're walking around the same weight the next day. Like, why damage our body? Let's put on the best performance that we can. So ONE FC kind of cut that process out. But is there kind of ways around it? Because I've also seen guys that look a lot bigger than others. And what are the
Yeah.
repercussions if you don't make or if you don't test for their water system, whatever they do? Like, what is the process with ONE FC?
See, the thing is, no matter what you do, people are gonna find their ways to get an advantage because let me just be honest here. I've fought some people in my 105 weight cutting experience where I'm like, dude, you're murdering yourself to make 105 because you can't hack it. You think you can't hack it on 115. Like, you need to just go fight 115. But that's why people do it. And I think people are going to continue to find ways to do things that make them feel comfortable, confident, whatever. But the one thing I like about One Championship is it doesn't prevent people from cutting weight, it just protects your brain. So the hydration test is basically just making sure your brain is hydrated, and they do CT scans every fight week, but it just makes sure that you're hydrated and healthy when it comes to the fight. Like, I've taken way more shots. I just fought Stan Fairtex and my brain was fine. I've never rocked that whole fight in comparison to when I used to cut to 105, and the level is like way higher now. But of course, there's people like, I don't know, I'm not gonna name names, but there's people who you can see in One Championship that are huge, they're not cheating. They just made a choice to diet, like eating like boiled chicken and like raw broccoli, like 3 months out, you know? And that's how they make weight, but they still have to hydrate for fight week. So it's still fair, it's still legal, and I like it. If you choose to suffer through the diet just to be a little bigger, it's fine with me. As long as my brain doesn't take a beating and as long as I don't get CTE, I'm good, you know? So if you asking if people in one championship have ways, yes, for sure. They just have to take a longer way and a harder way, and that's fine with me. If there's repercussions to you wanting to do that, then you make that choice.
Sweet. So you mentioned your fight against Stamp, which was an awesome fight. I since we booked this interview, I've watched that a couple times, just like playing it back and everything. And what just the whole fight itself was quite an experience because obviously you're fighting Stamp, who is a stand-up artist, but then you're fighting via MMA. What was your game plan going into the fight? How do you feel like the fight went? Because a lot of the fan questions that we got was in relation to that fight. Just give us a little insight on like how your preparation was, how the fight went, what your thoughts on the fight as a whole.
Yeah, it's interesting. A lot of things I learned from that fight, and I'm always transparent with these interviews and fans. I don't care. I'm gonna be honest. What I did wrong was I underestimated two things: her balance with Muay Thai, because obviously my grappling, I still stand that my grappling's better. If we went to the ground, I would be way better on the ground. But I underestimated how balanced Thai people are. She's been fighting since she was 5. Even if she doesn't have advanced wrestling, she has so much balance from clinching. And then on top of that, I need to train more on how to fight MMA in the ring because not only is her clench like high level, her clench was so good. That was the most problem I had in the fight. But also, she was able to sit on the ropes, which is not legal, not illegal. It's legal. But there's different ways you have to grapple on ropes as opposed to cage. Like the moves that I was doing in that fight, if there was a cage, she would have slid off of like slid down from my reaps, my leg reaps. But because there's a ring, there's holes where they can kind of sit back a little more. But those are the two things that screwed me in the fight. I underestimated her grappling as far as Muay Thai and that damn ring, man. I need to really train for that. Yeah, but I think that she also underestimated how hard of a fight I was gonna be. But then, in between the rounds, her corner was like, "Go for the knockout," because she had my number when it came to the clinches. So they were like, "Go for the knockout," and she looked at the corner and she was like, "Nah," because she was so smart to wait, stay back and wait for me because I have no choice. She's a champ. I have to come forward. If I don't come forward, I lose. So she knows I have to come forward, and she also knows I have power. So if she comes like her corner saying, she could have gotten dropped or knocked out. But she was so smart in staying back and killing me when I came in.
I think it's really good to stay objective in that sense and just to look at the technical details, the tactical decisions that you made in the fight, and then just how you would improve from there. What have you changed since the fight going forward with your training? Is there any accessory training that you also do in addition to martial arts that you have done before? Like you said, Stamp was extremely balanced, and that's from the years of clinch that she did since she was a youngin. And Chris Malseri, who is Sean's training partner, used to be a gymnast. And I noticed with him, like you can be a better grappler, you can be a better clinch fighter, but he was so balanced in the clinch from gymnastics, from keeping that strong posture that it was almost impossible to sweep him.
Yeah. For me, I've always done. Luckily, I started out with a good friend of mine who's my conditioning coach, and I've always done conditioning. Um, So I'm pretty strong for how short I am, and my key is to keep up a high pace. Like I'm never gassed out, and I keep a high pace. So I condition for that. But before MMA, I didn't have like our family was poor, like there was no karate, no taekwondo, no gymnast, no nothing. Wrestling is like was provided free at the school, so I took it. So I don't have any of like that kind of background. I'm not like a full around athlete. I'm People ask me and I always tell them there's martial artists and then there's fighters in my head. I am a martial artist for sure. I respect the sport, but I'm definitely a fight. This is my talent is fighting. I have grit, and I don't have like a big background in any other sports. So for me, I just focus on fight specifics. So after that Stamp fight, man, I went. So there's an MMA area at Tiger, and then there's like a Muay Thai area. And you know Thais, like Muay Thai area, they don't care how famous you are, whatever. You're doing exactly what they're doing. So I took myself from where I was good and I was high level up here. I took myself down to Muay Thai and I loved it because I was horrible in that class. Like all the Thais killed me, the Muay Thai guys killed me, the girls killed me, and my blocking sucked, my clinch sucked, according to the Thais, you know? And I loved it. So I think my key has just been like, do whatever you suck at. And that's what people don't do enough. So yeah. So after Stamp, I did a lot of clinching, which obviously I failed in that fight with the clinch.
Well, it's great that you're able to take that route because a lot of people, when they suck at something, they tend to avoid it because it's like a weakness and they don't want to feel like they're beat in a certain aspect. So the fact that you went to Thailand to work on your weaknesses definitely says a lot about you as a fighter. When it comes to your striking, first off, I love your style. Like as a southpaw and the angles that you take and the way that you're able to kind of like shift while you're moving forward and cut angles, it's like really exciting, like a fighting style to watch. And then you're able to like, I'm honestly like not a big MMA fan, but the way that you're able to mix in your wrestling and your entire game along with your southpaw striking, it's like so much fun to watch. It's beautiful to watch. When you decided to make the pro, we actually had this question from a fan, like what made you want to turn pro? What made you take the leap from amateur? I'm pretty sure you had a successful amateur career. Am I right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and how when was like the decision like, all right, like I'm gonna make the jump to pro and like this is it. I'm all in.
Um, it took me a little while because when I started amateur, I went straight to Legacy FC in America, which is pretty big on national TV. And so I've always had so much pressure. Like a lot of fans believed in me, which is a blessing, obviously, but it's also pressure. So it took me a long time to turn pro. I was like, man, I gotta really like kill it out the gates, you know? I can't like just turn pro prematurely. But it's money, man. You struggle as an athlete. Like I made really good money before I started martial arts, but I gave that up to do martial arts. And we all struggle the same journey, and we all have the same journey is like giving everything up for our sport. And so I've worked so hard. I've done everything. I stayed in Motel Sixes. I've driven 15 hours to fight. I've fought hurt, you know. So I'm like, you know what? I deserve pay, and I deserve some kind of recognition for this. And so I was like, it's time to turn pro. It's time to show the world what I can do.
That's beautiful. And then when you decided to go pro, when did one come into play? Because I was watching some of your old interviews and the UFC seemed like on top of mind for you. When did did one FC just reach out to you? It was like, we need you. And did you just kind of like jump right at that opportunity? Or was there a little bit more debate between you and your team when it came to figuring out what organization you wanted to fight for?
Oh my God, guys. So there's so much to that. Um, Everybody asked me this, so let me clarify it here. First time I'm answering this question, actually. Here, I'm Muay Thai guy, but so so one, when I turned pro, I had this manager, and he's not even a manager. He does this whole other thing. He just decided to be a manager, and this is what I'm telling you guys out there. If you're wanting to turn pro and you want to make it in the big leagues, whatever, research and make sure the contracts you sign are open because these people will really sell something to you. The manager, when I came out pro, I was 3-0, and even before pro, I think one hit me up. Before pro, one hit me up, and I think he mistaken. I had like a misdemeanor, like a driving ticket or something, and he mentioned it to one, and they were like, "Oh, she can't travel if she has a record." I'm like, I don't have a record. It's driving misdemeanor. So, with one, they were just scouting, and with that kind of barrier, they're just like, okay, no, never mind. I didn't know that until I got into one. I didn't even know my managers didn't even tell me about that. So that was a screw up. And then as 3-0 as pro, I'm really good friends with a lot of UFC people, and they were like, if you take a couple of fights at 115, we can talk about. I've been offered possible contract at 115. But being that I trained with Michelle Waterson, Claudia Gadelha, Holly Holm, I've trained with a lot of strawweights, and I don't want to lose.
Is she frozen for you?
Oh.
You're back. You're back.
Okay. So my point is that I was offered 115 in UFC, not straight up contract, but just if I took a couple of 115 fights, they'll put in one, they'll put me in. But I realized I'm just too small, and I don't want to ruin legacy. You know, I don't want to ruin my legacy losing because I'm small. I want to lose if I lose due to skill. So I said no to the UFC. Not that there was a contract. I'm just saying, like, oh no, guys, I can't do the 115. And then one called me after that. So that's how that all happened. So I did choose one over the UFC, but not in the sense of promotion, in the sense of it just didn't work at that time with size and weight. And also, I'm very happy at one. But that's the story of why I'm not in the UFC.
You spoke about the struggles and things that you have to give up and sacrifice and the type of work you have to do at the same time as you're chasing the dream. And a lot of times financially you kind of suffer. Did you work full time throughout your whole amateur and pro career up to this point? And do you still work now? Like, how do you make ends meet, especially during times like this? Fighting is always up in the air. Like, I have people ask me, oh, can we go on vacation in 6 months? And you never know what the contracts are like. You can win a fight and then be booked and all set, or you can lose and everything's kind of gone. So it's always by ear. How were you able to balance work, and how do you balance it now?
Okay. So I now am in a really good place. I won championship and a really good place in my career. So now I'm also mentoring and sponsor young fighters. So there are a couple of young fighters that are undefeated that I pay for their gym dues, and they live at my house. But the problem with that is they think that how my life is, I'm driving a Lexus, I have these means to help people, that I didn't like struggle like them. I didn't make money until one. So I've only been in one for a year and a half. You know, before that, I was working 2 jobs. I was living out of Michelle Waterson is like my sister. I was living in a room at her house, watching her kids, and training like that, learning under her. I was blessed to have people like that. I was living with in Cub Swanson's camp house. Just like we all struggle. So I think this is why I mentor kids now. You have to help them, because we are all going to go through this. No matter where you come from, this sport, you just have to go through that hardship, working hard. I think everybody needs a job when they're fighting. And it's hard to balance, but it's what you signed up for until you get to the big leagues. If you get there, I kind of rambled on, but I hope to answer your question.
Yes, ramble on. That's what like the podcasts are for, So like,
what the hell am I talking about?
So
I worked 2 jobs for most of my career until I got to one. Oh, and also this is what I want to say, because in case people are listening, when I started making money, and also I saved money from before MMA, but I invested. Right now I have investments. I have like percentages in some things. And so that's what's also keeping me afloat during this time where we're not fighting. And also another piece of advice, you guys need to all fighters need to start thinking right now as we're sitting at home why we're not on salary or have royalties when people play our fights. Actors have royalties. NBA, NFL all have salary. We are the only ones not only getting paid one time, but our likeness is being used over and over and over again. So 1, I think you need to invest, and 2, you need to relook at your contracts and relook at our sport and how we're getting treated financially.
That's a very intelligent way to look at it, because I think a lot of fighters don't look at the broader picture. And in regards to making yourself like you're your own brand, you're your own business identity essentially, and a lot of fighters are like, just no, I just want to fight, and don't worry about social media, don't worry about like all this other stuff that I have going on. But in something like right now where you're not even able to fight, you need other streams of income, you need other ways to supplement your life. And so I'm glad you were able to kind of voice your opinion on that, because I think a lot of that goes unknown and unheard of, because it's such a, I don't know, it's just like not a talked about thing in the fight world. The royalties is also an interesting thing. I never even thought about that, but yeah, with MMA and everything, and they get so many millions of views off of watching like your fights against like Stamp and everything from Legacy and everything. So
they own your likeness. You don't own your likeness. I think that we should be renting our likeness out instead of giving it away. But we're still at that place where we think there's only a few seats in the game, and we're just so scared to lose our seat. Like, oh, please, please, we're here. We're
breaking up a little bit. Hope you come back. I don't know.
Am I back?
Yes, you're back. I can hear you. Okay. Now you're moving around a little bit. So I wanted to kind of riff off something that you mentioned. You can hear me right now?
Okay.
You can hear me?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes. Okay. So you were talking about like helping the kids and the young adults kind of find their way, and you talked about mentoring them, and kind of part of your legacy is helping the youth find their way through the fight world and through martial arts. We had a question from a fan. He was wondering, do you have any tips for getting like his daughter into martial arts at a young age, and the importance of starting at a young age, especially as a female?
Yeah, I think it's great that you're that's inquiring about this. You're giving her like the early leg of the game. I think first you should start with jujitsu, because it's good for self-defense. So even if you don't change her mind a lot, so even if she changes her mind, she'll have this tool set for the rest of her life to defend herself. And then two, it's very, very important for you to be present. There are so many, it's now, the sport is growing, and that's great, but what happens when a sport grows is there's a lot of there's a lot of fakers out there. So you need to, I hope that you're present when she trains, and make sure that you research that the student and the teachers that are at that gym are have the right credentials and have her best interest at heart. Did that answer the question? I hope.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it gives some insight and everything on just what it's like. Because like, I wish I started martial arts when I was younger, but for whatever reason, I had to go through all these team sports before I found sanctuary essentially in the martial arts world. And I think especially for a female, like you said, jiu-jitsu is such an important martial art to know, because you're able to leverage your technique and use quote unquote disadvantaged positions to your advantage when you're on your back, when you're being tackled, whatever it might be. So I definitely think that that's that hit the nose on the head for sure. So why do you have such a passion for helping the youth through martial arts? Like what about it is so important to you that you feel like you need to speak out about these types of things and actually mentor people in this field?
I think I'm gonna be. I think there's two reasons. One, them, because I'm not a really mind my own person. When I see somebody needs help, or when somebody potential that see doing the wrong things, or people is like screwing you over or something, I want to reach help. I don't want to go through what I went through. But also, I think it motivates me to be better. Myself in a leadership position, I strive. I pressure on myself to be that much better as a person, as an athlete, as a mentor. So one, I definitely want them to go through everything been through, and also it kind of gives a reason to everything you've been through, right? I don't want to have lived these 3 lives and been through all this stuff for nothing. So with help them, I feel like it was for something. This was to serve something else, and that makes me better about struggles. And then for 2, it puts me in a leadership position to always try to be the best that I can be. Yeah, so that's why.
Cool. So yeah, you're just lagging a little bit, but we got like the majority of what you were saying. And yeah, I mean, so many people at a young age go through so many unseen difficulties, which can really, it's funny. Someone commented on this live YouTube video about like how fighters come off being like more friendly and articulate than some doctors and other professions. And when I first started fighting, I had this whole preconception of fighters being like angry people who just wanted to hurt each other and weren't nice and this kind of stuff. And meanwhile, now that I'm immersed in it, fighters are some of the coolest fucking people that I've ever met. And they're the most real people for the most part, because the thing about fighting is that it humbles you very quickly. You realize what your weaknesses are, you realize what your limitations are, and then you have to work on improving in that aspect. So with that being said, what do you have like a plan for? I think I heard you speak about like a charity and doing more things in regards to the cause. Can you talk a little bit about what you got working in the background for that?
Yeah, so I'm working on a few things, but a lot of these things take years of building. I've been the longest to create a community and resources to help source of abuse, domestic abuse, sexual abuse, build the new. A lot of people help, like they give them counsel and things like that. But I want to actually have a fund for people to start their life over, and a lot of donors. Like I've helped this lady fix her teeth because one of my friends offered her teeth because she teeth abuse. So these small little things that I've done, just with, I want to have a whole nonprofit, a structure to help the survivors recover and and then so I want to create a scholarship program, which I'm in the process of doing, a scholarship program for MMA fighters. I'm just working out the kinks of trying to figure out who deserves it and how would we go about that. But I'm working on a scholarship program for them.
All right, beautiful.
For young fighters.
Yeah, thank you so much for coming on. We just wanted to ask you if you can give any advice for anyone that maybe is in those situations. Now that we are at home, a lot of people are with their partners. Maybe they're in ideal situations, and some people in not so ideal situations. And if you can just share a positive note of advice to fighters or people that are struggling with things like abuse, and then just where anyone can find you.
So if there are some programs around the world, secret programs for people suffering from domestic abuse. There's sanctuary, there's safe places. I hope to try to find that local.
I think we might have lost her. Oh, no.
You got me?
Got your voice. Are you there, B? Are you there? Yeah, it's just lagging really bad for one reason or another. So I can see you giving a thumbs up. and then it froze. But
perhaps we can add a lot of the links to the show notes or to the show once it's up on the website, and we can forward people to the links and the resources that you know about and can provide, and including yours.
Yeah, but thanks so much for coming on. It was a great chat with you, getting know a little bit more about you, and yeah, we'll be in touch, and hopefully we can run this back sometime in the future. All right.
Thanks, guys.
All right. Take care.
Muay Thai guys,
Bye.
we're out.